Happy Friday, hockey fans, and welcome into another edition of Daily Faceoff Live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube and brought to you by Fountain Tire. You and your family's safety is important. Fountain Tire specializes in tire and auto service, and you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service because at Fountain Tire, they do both, and they save you money. Right now, you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 select tires, including Goodyear, and this runs all the way up until December 14th, plus an extra $50 on any service of $150 or more. Some restrictions apply. Stop at a Fountain Tire, make an appointment, or check out fountaintire.com. I am Tyler Uremchuk. He is Frank Seravalli, who's looking spiffy here on a Friday. Frank, how are you doing?
Can you believe they let us get to Friday again? Come on. It's ridiculous.
It's exceptional. I can't wait for the weekend. And you know who's going to be feeling good this weekend? Maybe buying his teammates a nice dinner? That is Shea Theodore, who secured the bag, as the kids say. Frank, it is a 7-year extension, as Shea Theodore will remain a Golden Knight throughout the remainder of his prime. $7.45 million per season on this deal. And I feel like we say this all the time when the Golden Knights sign someone, but man, does this ever feel like a win-win. Shea Theodore gets a boatload of money to continue playing in Vegas, and Vegas gets one of their best defensemen locked up for under $7.5 million for, as I said, the remainder of his prime.
Yeah, and I would say then you add in the no state income tax, and it's a win-win-win. So, look, this is a massive piece of business for Vegas. I mean, consider now the future of their blue line, the foreseeable future. Alex Pietrangelo, Noah Hannafin, and Shea Theodore wedged right between both of those players in cap hit, and they're all locked up for a little while. So, not only that, but they're under $24 million total starting next season. So you've got those guys for the foreseeable future at a time when, in pretty short order, I'd say in the first 3 years of this deal, the NHL salary cap will be way north of $100 million, and they will be in a fantastic spot to continue to chase the Stanley Cup. I mean, we talk all the time about the strength of cup contenders being their back end. And we'll talk about our inner circle cup contenders in just a little bit as we close out the last Friday in October. But to me, that's what's going to keep Vegas so well positioned moving forward, is just how good that defense core is.
Yeah, Pietrangelo locked up through his 37-year-old season. He's got 3 more years left on that contract, and none of them, in the point I'm making here, feel like they're going to be an albatross at any point. You mentioned the cap is going up, but it's not like you're going to be paying Pietrangelo till he's 40. Theodore's deal is going to end when he's 37. Noah Hannafin is only 27 years old right now. And again, you mentioned the kind of core part of a cup contender being their blue line. When you look at the way this Vegas team is now structured cap-wise, let's assume the cap next year is $92 million, just for a nice, easy round number. That means they'll have a hair over $20 million in cap space, with 7 top 9 forwards signed, 6 defensemen under contract. So they have $20 million to just sign goalies, more or less, Frank. Like, they have a chance to continue to build on this thing. They're in a great spot.
Yeah, they've been really aggressive in terms of taking care of some of these guys. I mean, look, Zach Whitecloud is a great example. He's got 4 years left at 2.75. Another guy on that back end, big contributor, Nick Hague. Like, they've gone about making sure that they solidify that position, and that's been hugely important. And you're right, it doesn't feel like too long. Shea Theodore, one of the top 10 offensive defensemen in the league, and someone that, you know, now looking at that cap hit, he certainly could have gotten way more market value. He's locked up through his age 36 year. It's a Vegas, for a team that entered the league with a blank slate, got to a Stanley Cup final their first year. They have managed their cap, even though it's been in peril at times. They've had to go short lineup. They've been up against it, which is tough in the first couple years for a team that started with a blank slate. I think they've managed it in such a fascinating way between the haves and have-nots. We're paying the elite guys. We're not paying the guys that aren't. There's no middle class on our team, and it's worked.
And also, when you're Vegas, if you take that approach, you should always be able to find veterans, or not always, but more often than not, you should be able to find veterans on cheap contracts. And we saw this year, we talked about Victor Olofsson yesterday, and I think that's a trend they can continue to do, is just get guys who are maybe looking for bounce back, sign cheap, because playing in Vegas is fun and they're always going to be a contender. And you manage the cap that way. So it will be a very interesting summer in Vegas because it looks like they'll finally have some flexibility. And like you said, they're always aggressive.
Yeah, but here's the problem, and a perfect transition to topic 2. Everyone else around the league, they're looking at this free agent class going, "Oh, another impact defenseman off the board." I mean, we now turn our attention right to how about Aaron Ekblad? How about Jacob Chikrin? How about Brent Burns? I mean,
Yeah.
it's an interesting group now, and Shea Theodore is a huge name off the table.
Absolutely. And this is from our friends over at Puckpedia. It's the pending UFA defenseman, and it's sorted by their current cap hit. So that's why Brent Burns, 39 years old, is at the top. You got Orlov in Carolina as well. Ekblad, Provorov, and there are some names there who are definitely past their prime. I think Gavrikov would be interesting for a lot of teams if he doesn't go back to LA.
Neil
Chikrin, you just
Pionk, don't
mentioned.
sleep on him. How about the breakdown that John Goyens did the other day on the coaches room? He couldn't say enough good things about the work that Pionk has done on film, but you look at this, and as these guys continue to get taken off the board, it becomes a less and less attractive class.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to get to. Was this is the list right now, but I can see a whole bunch of these guys re-signing in their current spots, and I'll be fascinated to see by December or January how this list looks and how many guys who are in the 11 to 20 range, if you want to call it that, are then into the top 10. Because once you get out of that top 10, you kind of got to start wincing and squinting a little bit more to find pieces who could help a contender. And I think it just goes to show, Frank, if you're a team that is looking or is in their cup window whose weakness is defense, I don't think you can just sit there and hold your breath and go, oh, we're going to wait till the summer and we'll solve it then. Like, you probably need to get aggressive on the trade market if you're going to solve your issues.
And that's really hard to do, as we'll talk about in Icebreakers coming up shortly, with a couple teams already looking for defensemen. I mean, it's all the good ones are all locked up. And I wonder if getting that Shea Theodore extension done, does that do anything to help Aaron Ekblad in his talks with the Florida Panthers? Because I believe it's been pretty slow on that front. And the Panthers have prioritized Carter Verhaeghe. They just got the extension done for Paul Maurice. Clearly, Bill Zito is in that mode. He's talking to Sam Bennett and his group about what that looks like. But I haven't heard much on Aaron Ekblad, and I wonder what a similar no state income tax environment comparison does. But in some ways, that might signal that maybe Aaron Ekblad wouldn't be getting a raise.
Yeah, so Ekblad right now in the final year of a deal at 7.5. And I guess you kind of just answered what my next question was going to be. The Panthers have right now, again, assuming a $92 million cap, about $18.7 million in space next year. Is the Theodore deal the comparable or the ceiling for Ekblad?
I think it's the ceiling. I don't think Ekblad's been quite as good as Theodore, and definitely not as impactful. And the injuries have been pretty significant for Ekblad.
Yeah. Let's move along to what went through or what went on last night in the NHL. Some statement wins around the league. That's maybe not what I would use to describe the way the Detroit Red Wings have racked up a couple of dubs here, but I wanted to pass this along, Frank. They've won back-to-back games with just 31 shots and only 24 at 5-on-5. That's not per game. That's in the two games combined, 31 shots on goal. And they won both games, including a 5-3 win yesterday over the Devils. I mean, credit to them. They're finding ways to win, I guess.
Yeah, I guess is right. I mean, I look at that and say that's awesome. Two much needed wins. I think that's 3 in a row for the Wings now to really kind of calm down what had been a tough start to the year. That said, the process would need to be significantly better.
Yeah, that division too, just looking remarkably close right now when you consider Montreal's in last, 7 games played, but 5 points. Couple of teams at 7, handful of teams now at 8 points, and then Florida at the top with 11. 5-3-1 to start the year are the Florida Panthers. And yesterday, it was Sergei Bobrovsky making some history, becoming the fastest goalie to 400 wins, doing it in 707 games. It was one of those stats, Frank, as I read it on Daily Faceoff, I was like, wait, fastest ever?
Yeah.
Ever?
Ever? I mean, it's so true, because we all did that. In our Slack chat, someone threw in the tweet from the NHL. We were like, ever? It's an incredible number. It also speaks to how consistent Bobrovsky has been. He's played on some good teams, even to start his career with the Flyers, back 10, 11, 12 years ago. They were a team that was well north of 100 points and in the mix. And so to start piling up wins then, I guess really the big question for me is, will he be able to continue to climb the charts, much like a Marc-Andre Fleury has done, who, by the way, looks like he jumped back into the lineup last night and didn't miss a beat after, I think it was 12 days between starts. So Fleury is right up there at the very top in the all-time wins list. I think he's second all-time. It's an incredible accomplishment, but it speaks to how long the longevity you need in addition to the excellence.
Sergei Bobrovsky now 23 wins away from tying Tony Esposito for 10th all time. So he's close to cracking into that top 10 list. Obviously 291 away from Martin Brodeur for top all time in wins by a goaltender. Another win I wanted to talk about last night, Frank, was over in Dallas, where it looks like the Stars really have not missed much of a beat. They're 6-2-0 to start the year. And something that is just, again, year after year, so impressive about them is their depth up front. They win 5-2, get 3 of their goals on the power play, but it's 5 different goal scorers who do the job. And I think last year, or if you were to look at them year over year, it's kind of like, okay, is Matt Duchene going to be Matt Duchene again? Is Tyler Seguin again? These guys not getting any younger. They're in their 30s. Is he going to be as productive as he was last year? And what we're seeing early on is that it's absolutely the case. Even on a night where you're not starting Jake Ottinger and you go with Casey DeSmith, the offense can power you. I mean, DeSmith played well. I'm not trying to discount that, but it's just the fact that their forward depth can win them so many games. This was an impressive victory for them over the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, and every time you're like, hey, what does that Dallas Stars forward core look like moving forward? And the Matt Duchene deal continues to be absolutely ridiculous. 3 points, another 3 points. He's only signed for $3 million this year. A great reminder for players that A, money isn't everything, and B, don't bleep with happy. That part has been hugely clear in terms of Duchene wanting to stay in Dallas. And so you got Duchene that he ends up staying. And then now you've got some interesting contract decisions coming up. What happens with Jamie Benn? But then, Stankoven rolls in. And then after that, it's, hey, here's Maverick Bourque. Like, let's just add in another guy, another layer to this. And the thing I'll keep coming back to with Dallas is, if you want to talk about their depth, you have to go back to their drafting, because when you draft so well, it allows you this many different options to continue to add to your team from internally without having to go out and do what we just talked about. If you want to improve your team defensively, your 2 options are trade or draft. And you have to have the foresight, expert scouting, and patience to then be able to pull it off on the draft end. And if not, you're going to pay through the nose.
All right, let's keep talking. I mean, the Dallas Stars are definitely a part of our next conversation here. It is the Inner Circle, Frank, and we're going to be doing this last Friday of every month. So we'll keep it moving. Names will come in and out, and we'll be kind of tracking. I like this more than a straight power ranking, because then I feel like the debates always get into like, oh, you have this team at 3, but this team at 5, and I think they should be switched. I think this is a clear-cut way to be like, all right, in the moment, who truly looks like a Stanley Cup contender? Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first, because I'm pretty selective. I think this is a really tough category to crack. And I actually don't have any teams on my outer circle, because I don't know that anyone's really earned that distinction yet. So this week's results, I guess, notwithstanding for the New York Rangers, after Peter Laviolette blasted them after last night's game, and even after a 5-0-1 start, they were somehow getting booed at Madison Square Garden, which is like crazy. But I've got the Dallas Stars, Winnipeg Jets, who have been unbelievable, and they've played to their team identity. The Oilers have been scuffling, but I'm still going to take the long-term view for a team that started so poorly last year. And the Vegas Golden Knights, I think, given what we just talked about with their defense, given the way that this team has started, I really like the strength of their tandem in net. I think Vegas is right in that group. And so who are some of the other teams that I thought about or talked about, to try and sort of negotiate down to this group? The Florida Panthers going to 2 cup finals in a row, like you have to consider them. I don't think they're as strong as some of the other teams that are in that mix. I didn't really know what to do with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Leafs have sort of come back to earth after a really good start. The Devils, to me, are a little bit too all over the place to really throw them in that group. And then out west, I love what we've seen from Mini 5-0-2, but they're not there yet. And I don't really see any other potential contender from the Pacific Division. So then someone's probably looking at that saying, "You asshole, why don't you have the Colorado Avalanche in there? Can't you see that this team has come alive? What's missing here?" Right now, until we see what that lineup looks like later, I just think they're too thin to truly be a Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, and I did not have the Avs in my inner or outer circle either, simply because of that. I was trying to look at this through a balance of like in the moment, but also with a little bit of in the long run, how do I view their roster? So I only had 4 in my inner circle, and it just so worked out that it was for one team from each division. I have Florida in. Yeah, I have Florida in, which you didn't. I just look at it and you might go, hey, they're 5-3-1. Like, what's so special about that? Winning games without Barkov. They won games without Matt Tkachuk as well. I think that roster and just the way Paul Maurice continually has this team playing is so impressive. So I had Florida in along with the other 3 that you did. I had some outer circle pieces. And for me, it was just teams with only maybe one question mark is how I kind of laid it out. And I mean, Winnipeg is the one I really hummed and hawed on, because you're like, Jesus, Yaremchuk, they're 7-0. What more do you want to see from them? But then there's also the part of me that goes, they didn't really add anything new over the summer. It's the same core that hasn't gotten the job done year over year. So maybe I do want to see them be elite for 3 months before I'm willing to put them in a tier which they've never proven they can be in.
Yeah, and that's a totally fair comment. And Boston probably should have gotten some love from me. I know that they've been an analytic mess, and a lot of their underlying numbers are brutal. And unlike them, I just think that team is going to round into better form than they are now. I've got Winnipeg there because I do think sometimes at the end of the day, identity ends up being king. And look, there's lots of good arguments. The only sort of quip or commentary I would have for you is you got 9 teams on there, bud. That's like 27, 28% of the league. It's kind of a lot.
I know, but there's only 4 in my inner circle.
Yeah, so you were more selective on the inner, which is
Yeah.
great. But
I mean, we do know in the
little
NHL.
generous on the outer.
Yeah, but in the NHL, I mean, it is a little bit of a win and get in, or get in and you can win kind of league, right?
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to keep doing that last Friday of every month. Should be a lot of fun to track things throughout the year, and also like look back at the end of the regular season or at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs and be like, who did we have in October in our inner circle? Because I'm sure there'll be a couple that'll leave us being like, what were we even thinking? Let's continue along, get to our insider segment for the week. It is a fresh edition of Icebreakers. There's nothing Frank Seravalli loves more than talking about trade targets and deadline talk in October. But that is exactly where we're going to start. Maybe not quite deadline talk, but let's go to Montreal, where injuries have stacked up a little bit, and Kent Hughes maybe is starting to look at the market for a defenseman.
Yeah, so he's been calling around to teams checking prices over the last week or so. And what they found out is that it's pretty expensive, and rightfully so, to get a top 4 right shot defenseman. They're between a rock and a hard place. I mean, you mentioned the injuries that have piled up. Caden Gooley's missed time. Mike Matheson's played through back spasms. We saw the big Trouba hit on Justin Barron. And what that's essentially done has forced them into some tough lineup decisions. Lane Hudson, he had a night already where he played 30 minutes and 5 seconds. He's averaging almost 24 minutes a night for a guy that's played a grand total of 9 NHL games in his career. That's not anything that they want. You can't just pile on and load minutes onto David Savard's plate, because there's a law of diminishing returns there. Once he gets over 20 minutes, you start to see his play drop off in a big way. They have a standard that they want to get to this season. They are pretty far from it right now. The problem with going out and trading for someone right now is they think they're well set up for the future in terms of their back end. There's not a ton of room in the long-term view, in their opinion, for, to add someone into that mix that's new, because they're believers in Logan Mailloux and David Reinbacher, who's hurt, and of course, Lane Hudson. And so you've got a few of those pieces already there, but you need some more additional legs to stand on, some more support this season. How do you solve for both those things at the same time? That's exactly what the Montreal Canadiens are weighing right now. Unhappy with the status quo and don't want to see that continue. but really uncomfortable paying the price. So we'll see where that goes. But I think definitely a storyline to watch, and they're not the only team looking for defense.
No, they're not. Just one more note on Montreal. Like you said it, Reinbacher, Caden Gooley's another name. So many of these guys are young. Not to go full Jason Gregor on you, but Mark Giordano, like if you're looking for a stopgap, why not just go to the free agent market?
I mean, it's an interesting thought. I don't know if they'll end up pulling the trigger or doing it. I mean, to your point, Justin Schultz, I think would have been a fine enough addition as well.
Fair. You mentioned other teams looking for defense. It has been noted throughout the week the injuries that Utah is dealing with. Is Bill Armstrong maybe going to go out and try to do something about it?
He's trying to take a patient approach. I think he's trying to resist the urge. Look, no team can go and withstand losing two of their top four defensemen. And for the next 4 months, Sean Durzi and John Marino, it's just a huge blow to that team. 2 separate injuries, 2 critical injuries. And you look at the defense core that they're left with, and Michael Kesselring has done an admirable job. Maverick Lamoureux, towering defenseman, comes in 6'8" on skates. Somehow they lose last night 5-1 to the Avs, and he was on the plus side of the ledger playing 20 minutes a night, which is pretty impressive for an NHL debut. But they're not really comfortable with this defense core for the long haul for the rest of the season. And I'm told that what Bill Armstrong has done is call around to teams in the last week. They're actually 1-4 since Sean Durzi went down. And he's asked about some really established big name players. And the funny thing about that is a lot of times that results in a very short phone call because teams are like, yeah, right. Come on. Like, let me know when you get serious. But the flip side of that is that's actually exactly how he acquired Mikhail Sergachev from the Tampa Bay Lightning at June's draft when, he's calling around at the beginning of the offseason asking about certain players. And then all of a sudden, Julien Brisebois calls back and says, hey, remember that time that you asked about Sergachev? Are you still interested? And so maybe what's being done now is planting the seed. In the meantime, Utah Hockey Club is going to try and exhaust their internal options. Kevin Connaughton is a guy, in Tucson that he's got NHL experience if they need to. You saw Maverick Lamoureux come in. They've got a couple other guys, Artem Duda, that is a second-round pick that they're really high on, and Zuber as well. So I mentioned those guys in the piece today on Daily Faceoff. They might cycle through a few of those guys, and you could see them pull the trigger at some point, but nothing so far that they really seem to be latched onto.
Last one I got for you here. It is about John Tortorella in Philadelphia. There is the disagreement on the bench with Nick Seeler that has people kind of going like, oh, is this kind of the part of the story where Torts loses the room a little bit? Is that the case, or is he safe?
No, tis the season, right? It's getting chilly in Edmonton. You throw on the seat warmer. And for some coaches with slow starts, the Flyers off to a 1-5-1 start, people want to ask the question, is the seat getting warmer? And I can tell you that the answer is an unequivocal no for John Tortorella. I can tell you he's not going anywhere. So he has the complete and total support of the Flyers organization. They believe he's the right guy to continue to build and mold this team and teach the young players that they have. And a separate little side note on the Flyers, big day for Jet Luchenko, the 18-year-old first-round pick. Today, it appears, would be decision day. He didn't play in either game against the Washington Capitals this week, and the Flyers want him playing. If it's not here, they got to get him playing games elsewhere. They don't want him sitting around. So essentially, the message today is play this weekend or you're heading back to Guelph. So the decision will be up to John Tortorella or not to see if Jet Luchenko is in his lineup. And one other really small thing for the Flyers to keep an eye on as well. Ivan Fedotov has struggled this season. You could see Kolosov come up from the AHL to get his taste of the NHL that he's been looking for potentially as soon as this weekend. So keep an eye on the Flyers roster.
And Fedotov, 3-point-something million for the next this year and next year. Would the situation be like you can get that guy through waivers if you wanted him to go get his game right in the American League, right?
Yes, you could.
All right, there you go. Excellent insight from Frank. If you want to read more about those icebreakers nuggets, you can head to dailyfaceoff.com. We got an interesting Ask DFO just coming off that Montreal conversation, Frank, and it's in from Ryan. It says, if things go downhill from Montreal with the upcoming free agent market for defense, do they try to get maximum value on Mike Matheson? Frank, if they decided to go that way, $4.8 million for this year and next. If things, and I like that Ryan said that, if things go downhill for Montreal, they would get a ton considering what the rental markets could potentially be looking like this year.
Yeah, but then it further exacerbates exactly what we're talking about. As attractive as that might be, I mean, how do you then go and fill the void that you have for Matheson? It's like now you got to start over again and add another piece in return. I was maybe sleeping on Matheson's season last year. Like, I don't know that he got enough pub for the year that he had on a team that wasn't very good. 62 points on the blue line. Do you know that Mike Matheson was 9th among all defensemen in scoring last year? I mean, when we went through the numbers again yesterday, that really kind of surprised me. So it's a great question by Ryan, and I think it certainly would have to make you think if you're the Canadians, but I'm going, well, then it just exacerbates and compounds the problem that you have. And then the rebuild just stretches on longer and longer when they probably need to start turning the corner. At some point, the Montreal market is going to get fired up when they don't start to see results. And they've been on board with the rebuild, which has been fantastic. And I think it just shows the incredible hockey intelligence that the fan base has in terms of what they're trying to build. But I don't know. I don't necessarily see it.
Let's move along to our daily bets for Bet365. You can sign up today, download the app, and get in on a huge range of markets. And use the promo code NATION. That's NATION. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Yesterday, it was 2-1 Panthers, like 10 minutes into that game. And I was like, over 5.5 lock. And then Bobrovsky showed up. It was a 3-1 final. Didn't get the over, but got my juicy plus 195 win by the St. Louis Blues. Tonight, I'm going with a home favorite instead of a road dog. I like the New Jersey Devils in this matchup. They deserved to win last night in Detroit. And I know you can say deserves got nothing to do with it, Tyler, but the point is I like the way they're playing. Minus 125 against the Islanders at home. Good price on a Friday night. And my shot prop for today is Roman Josi. 4+ shots on goal. He's hit this in back-to-back. He's hit it in 3 of 5, and you're getting minus 110. This is a guy who loves firing pucks on net, and with a good matchup against the Blackhawks, I think Nashville will be able to get plenty of rubber towards the crease. So 2 plays for tonight brought to you by Bet365 on a little feel-good Friday. And hey, if you want to feel good, how about this video from the Utah Hockey Club of rookie defenseman Maverick Lamoureux getting the call up? Let's take a watch.
Future goals that you want to touch on, or things that you're hoping for coming in?
Yeah, well, definitely the main goal is to play with Utah this season. So we'll see what happens with that. That's going to be me and how I play, and the decision of the coaching staff and the GM and everyone. But I can just do what I can with that and how I play. But that's definitely the main goal, that's for sure.
So I got a call from Maverick, and he said, "Hey, is Mom awake?" I say, "No, she's sleeping." I say, "Wake her up." I say, "No, we're really tired. Just came back from Tucson." I say, "No, I have to tell you something." So wake her up, and then I put Maverick on speaker, and he said, "I've been called up." So
I'm flying out tomorrow morning.
Moi, je pensais que j'allais pas venir. I've been telling everyone, I don't know if my parents are going to be here. Good surprise.
So Lamoureux didn't actually know if his parents were going to be able to make it for his debut. So a very nice surprise.
That's what I was going to say. The really cool part about that is the whole time he was thinking that they weren't maybe going to make it, and Utah Hockey Club had already set it all up. And so they were well ahead of it. Great stuff there. And also nice to see a little more G-rated video from the Lamoureux family. If you recall his draft, his parents were kind of caught on camera making out as he was selected. So all in good fun. Great to see that. And what a moment for him. And what a debut, as I mentioned, on the plus side of the ledger in a 5-1 loss, playing 20 minutes a night.
Not easy to do at all. Utah looks like they might have a good one in Maverick Lamoureux. That was a good week of Daily Faceoff Live, heading into the weekend on a high note. Appreciate everybody in the YouTube chat. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, make sure you do so already. You don't want to miss the Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil, Morning Cup of Hockey with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen, or Starting Goalies with Carter Hutton. Hit that subscribe button, and more importantly, enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll be back on Monday. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content, from daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.